So what's the best way to avoid injury? How do we take care of our hands as bass players? In today's video, I'm going to share with you 3 things that I do almost every single time I sit down with the instrument. And my goal is always to go from a completely cold and unwarmed up state to get into playing basically whatever I hear. I want that feeling of being totally invincible while at the same time knowing I'm not doing any damage to my hands and I'm getting great time spent with the instrument. If I'm really starting from zero and the hands are cold and I know I have to go through like the full warm-up routine to get to the place where I can really be injury-free in my practice routine, I go back to the very first exercise in my very first book, All the Good Stuff. It's so simple yet so effective, and I'll tell you why. It's a diminished chord. Basically, it engages all the fingers on your fretting hand individually. You know, you could play a bar chord, but that would sort of weight the pressure on the first finger a little unevenly. The diminished chord, right here on E flat, doesn't matter which key you're in. The diminished chord means that you're fretting each note individually with your fretting hand. And not only that, in order to play it, you have to use all 4 picking fingers on your picking hand, the thumb and the first, second, third finger. So it's engaging everything at the same time, and you can make it as hard or as easy as you want. It all depends on listening to your body and knowing how cold the hands are, how much you need that initial injection of blood flow through the fingers to warm up, and then you take it from there. My approach is I normally play it 8 times on each in each position. Now you'll notice I'm not playing legato, where I'm holding the chord down the entire time. I'm really making sure I come off and mute, not only with the picking hand, which I'm sure you're used to doing already, but muting a lot with the fretting hand as well. So it's this kind of pumping action, very slight, only 2 or 3 millimeters, depending on how high your action is. This pumping action with your fretting hand. And I guarantee after about 2 minutes of that, nice slow tempo, nice relaxed posture, the blood is really going to be flowing through the fingers. It is only 1 chord, it is only 1/8 notes, and you play it 8 times in each position, but that will really get you warmed up. That's been my go-to warm-up exercise for close to 30 years now. I mentioned posture very briefly just then, and that is a huge key to not getting injured. So many bass players I see have the picking hand, the wrist completely bent at a right angle, hanging over the edge of the bass. That is not good for your wrist. So much unnecessary tension there. For me, the concept is to keep this wrist as straight as possible. Now, I do that by having the bass on the same leg as my fretting hand. For me, I'm right-handed, that's my left leg. I have that raised off the floor using a footstool, and it really takes a lot of tension out of my entire posture. And as you can see from my right wrist, anything I play means that wrist is able to stay completely straight, takes all the tension out of the shoulders. I'm not wearing a strap right now, and all the weight is just sitting on that leg. So a lot of tension that is normally carried by the upper body when it comes to being a bass player and having a strap and standing and doing all the things we do as bass players, a lot of that is taken out of the equation. Now, a very important caveat for that is that I not only practice sitting down, but I play sitting down. So you have to be really aware of what your final posture is going to be, your final playing position. If you're standing up and the bass is hanging down around your knees on a long strap and you're running around the stage, okay, you have to make adjustments for that. You've got to be really aware of the bigger picture. And the things I'm showing you here are, number one, very suited to my style of playing, but it's not like you can't adjust them. Just be aware of what your final playing position is going to be and adjust accordingly. Now, like I said, I have the bass raised on my left leg, and that takes a lot of tension out of both arms. I also don't have the instrument completely parallel to the body. It sticks out. And as I look at the camera here, the neck comes closer to you. It's sticking out at an angle, I would say at least a 45-degree angle. Now, again, a few caveats here. What scale length do you play? Are you playing a regular 34P bass like this? Are you perhaps playing a shorter scale bass like I normally play? Maybe you're playing a piano sounding instrument that's 35 or 36, maybe a multi-scale bass. Again, really important to figure out what works best for you. There isn't really a one size fits all, but there is conceptually, I think, a single concept that fits most, with adjustments, with slight caveats. And that's not to say it's wrong to put the instrument on the other leg, on your picking hand leg if you're sitting down. There are ways to facilitate the straight wrist and to be able to play with very little tension in that arm. What that does do, unfortunately, though, is, as you can see here, I have to raise the shoulder slightly to keep the wrist straight. So there are compromises here and there. That's why I have arrived at having the instrument raised on my left leg and alleviating all of that stress. And when I play, if I do ever choose to stand on a gig, the strap position will reflect this seated playing position. I think that's where we need to make the connection, is make sure that your standing position, it comes as close as you possibly can with the strap to your seated practice position. Not only is this second idea I want to share with you just a part of my practice routine in general, it's something I've talked at length about before, which is repetition. I like to get things into my muscle memory, to get it to the point where I'm not remembering them. It's like that I can't really ever forget them. So repetition is a huge part of practice in general, and not least of all for my warm-up. Something I still do to this day, despite having written this book many years ago. I still go back and grab the play-alongs from the Bass Player's Guide to Pentatonics. By the way, any of the books we're referencing, any of the play-alongs you're hearing in this video are available for download below in the description of the video. Physical books, signed copies if you want them, digital books, it's all available in the description of the video if you want to dive deeper into some of the stuff we're talking about in this video. But I'm going to grab a G minor pentatonic, just a G minor groove, one of the backing tracks from that book, and make an example of how I sit here and use repetition So I'm going back to that initial idea over and over and over again. And it's simple. It's not taxing on the body. It's just that. It's flat 7 to 1 and then up to the minor third. That's it. And I will quite happily spend 5, 10, 15 minutes. I mean, imagine you do that for just 15 minutes, completely locked in, dialed into the time and the sound, the two most fundamentally important things of what we do as musicians. Even just 5 minutes, forget the 15 for now, just 5 minutes doing that sets me up for an amazing day of practicing and of spending time with my instrument. There's so much you can get done in 5 minutes. You really start to feel the warmth enter your fingers, start to feel loose, start to feel flexible. You're not flying around doing stuff that's unrealistic as the moment you pick up your instrument. You're having a little bit of discipline to sit in one area of the neck and use repetition with the idea to warm up the body, warm up the muscles, and prepare yourself to really get deeper into your practice routine. Now, the third thing I love to do when it comes to the warm-up, when it comes to that first 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes of what I'm playing during the day, is to get away from the real exercise type situation where it's really just very basic technical elements of the instrument and start to move into music, start to move into something that's relevant for what I'm about to practice for the rest of the day. Right now, that happens to be chords. It changes throughout the week, the month, the year. Obviously, I have different things I need to work on just as you do all the time. Right now, that happens to be chords, and it happens to be inversions of chords. So this third part of my warm-up is something that always rotates. It's something that's never set in stone in terms of the notes. Conceptually, though, it's my bridge from warm-up to practice. I want to make that as smooth as possible, and I want to get into relevancy, to get into the material that's relevant to what I'm doing now as fast as possible. Again, the most important part being that throughout this, you listen to your body, and if you get stuck, maybe even on the on the diminished chord, just playing 8 times on each position, and you're not feeling that for 10 minutes and it's like it's not working, you got to listen to your body. Don't rush to stage 2. Definitely don't rush to stage 3. Maybe slow the first one down and figure out exactly what it is, where the hitch is, where you're not feeling good, and work on that. Don't rush into the next stages. And maybe the most important piece of advice I can give you, the thing that's worked best for me over these 30 years of playing this instrument, is if it's not working, just take a break. It may not be the right time to play, even if you know, damn it, it's the only 20 minutes of the day I have, and you're trying to force the issue. Don't force the issue. If it really isn't the right time, you'll do yourself more harm by forcing the issue than good by, you know what, I'm going to admit to myself it's not the right time. I'm going to go do something else. But for me, today we've arrived at this third element of my warm-up, getting into the musical side, getting into the more creative side of things, where I'm headed for the rest of my day. And today it happens to be inversions of triads, inversions right now of minor triads. So I've got C minor first inversion, C minor second inversion, and up to the octave. And my plan is to be able to do that in all 12 keys, and to figure out all those places where I'm kind of running out of range here on a standard 4-string. So instead of going up, I can just about do it there, but I can't get the octave, so I have to come back down to play the octave. This entire exercise for triads and all of their inversions is from my book, Chordal Harmony. I know chords aren't necessarily number one on every bass player's list, but when you start to hear the options for what you can get out of a triad, just the root, the third, and in this case it's a minor triad, root, minor, third, and fifth, just the root, the third, and the fifth. It's pretty amazing, especially when you combine them 5 to 1, and if you're moving through all 12 keys. We go to F, I'm going to move in a cycle of fourths. Now we go to B flat minor, where I can get up the octave for that. I might even drop in a dab of reverb to give myself I really like that sound. And like I said, when you can't always go all the way up the instrument in the same pattern, knowing how to come down and get the fifth, for instance, the second inversion, really useful. It's a bit of a brain twister, and that's what I'm saying. I'm really feeling warm already, and I'm moving on to music, so I'm working different parts of my brain as well as bringing my technique up to the boil, shall we say. The blood is flowing now. I feel really good. I know today is going to be a successful day with the instrument, and I'm already into music. I'm working on time, I'm working on sound, and above everything else, I'm working on being musical, and I'm doing it whilst being really conscious of how to avoid injury as a bass player. Comments and questions below. I will do my best to answer everyone's questions, especially if they happen to be about this topic. All of the books I mentioned in today's video are available below in the description of the video. Physical copies, signed copies, digital copies. There are hoodies, there's merch, there's all kinds of stuff down there. And I wish you really, really great and fun, injury-free practicing. I'll see you.